That's good. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Let me just set the stage. ESA, obviously, Cindy and Anna and I appreciate so much you taking time to be part of this exciting healthcare series focused on well-being, which will continue into October, present time. This is the third of 8 meetings set at a 2-week cadence, where we have been showcasing to our community the best of the best innovations in well-being. So before I turn it over to Art Dickerson, our session leader, to introduce BeneRe and Benefit Science, we want to thank our sponsors, of course, ADP and Siegel, and certainly specifically Art for his willingness to facilitate and moderate this discussion. We consider Art as one of the innovators in the well-being space. He has been extremely instrumental in targeting these solution providers who are unique and are some of the best, to use that phrase once again. Art is the president and CEO of Top Gear Strategies. He has been at the forefront of innovation for over 4 decades, and his company advises on leading innovations and growth strategies. So with that, I will turn it over or pass the baton to Art to set the stage for our time together today. So Art, all yours.
Well, thank you, John. Again, welcome to this professional development series. I think it should come as no surprise to those of you that have been on these calls for the last several sessions, that the ability to attract and retain the best talent in the world is absolutely paramount. And what we're doing today is another dimension of how that happens by helping you double down on some strategies that have a 3-fold improvement on behavioral well-being, health well-being, and financial well-being, and kind of do this in new and better ways. So over the next remaining 3 months or so, that we're going to continue to highlight some of these best innovators, best of the best, that are positively impacting the future of work. So we are recording today's session. We will send out a link to ESA's YouTube channel and the presentations after we're done. So I just want to say thank you again for being with us today. We know that your time is valuable. I mean, you are really stressed for time, as so many others are, and we are deeply honored you've chosen to spend this time with us. So we're going to learn about leading innovators today who are dramatically improving well-being and outcomes to the purpose of both lowering your costs at your company while optimizing engagement and retention at the same time in the continuing war for talent. So the introduction today, just briefly, will be very short. We're going to be hearing from 2 innovators. You'll see on the outline in front of me, BeneRe will be presenting first, and then Benefit Science will follow. Both of these are doing some very interesting things around well-being. Kyle Fragone, who's the COO of BeneRe, and Stephen Soful, who's the CEO of Benefit Science. Kyle's going to kick this first session off in just a moment. But I want to make sure you stick around for part 2 that's led by Stephen. The Benefit Science technology will be after Kyle presents, and it's equally engaging and something you don't want to miss. So Kyle, we're delighted to have you on our panel today, and congratulations. I understand you recently landed 2 giant employers, Westinghouse and Mondelez, which I guess adds to your existing 30 of your nation's largest clients in just a few years of operations. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Stephen, also, thank you for being on our panel today, and congrats. I understand you've been selected as one of 2 analytic firms in the industry to be able to provide access to all Blue Cross Blue Shield plans across the country, total of 34. So congratulations on that recent recognition.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Glad you're here. So Kyle, you can go ahead and share your screen. You've got 15 minutes, and thereafter we'll have 10 minutes of Q&A. I will need to cut you off after 15 minutes sharp, but I know you promised you'll keep that within the time frame, but you can share your screen now and begin. You've got 15 minutes.
Yep. Bear with me while I get this set up. Got to find the right screen. I apologize. Screen 2. Let's move everyone off of there. And does everyone see that?
You got it.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you, Art. I appreciate that introduction, and thank you all for joining the call today. I'm excited to share how BeneRe is continuing to help employers attract and retain talent by providing better benefits to your employees. So we're going to get started here. First, I want to kick off with just some quick agenda items. So for today, we're going to try to answer some main questions for everyone. What is the problem we're trying to address? Well, there's a perceived lack of value and utter lack of transparency in the supplemental benefits marketplace today. So that is the challenge we're tasked with. And the unique solution that BeneRe brings is that we're the only provider of a captive model in this space in the marketplace today. So how does that help you attract and engage talent? So by offering better supplemental benefits at lower premiums with full transparency, it allows employers to think outside the box and offer these programs in new ways than they ever have before, which they can then attract and engage and retain those employees. So, and at the end, we'll answer some Q&A and open it up for everyone. I think it's important for us to start to define the world we're dealing with when we talk about voluntary benefits. BeneRe specifically focuses on accident, critical illness, and hospital indemnity benefits. And that's because these play an integral role in the employee benefit program or the employee benefit part of an employer's total compensation strategy. While those are important products, there's still some tremendous inefficiencies and utter lack of transparency in the way that traditional carriers offer these products in the market today. These products, because of that, these products tend to take a backseat to dental and vision programs, and because of that perceived lack of value. But when it comes to dental insurance, when was the last time any of us heard of someone going bankrupt from going to the dentist? Medical expenses, that's the leading cause of personal bankruptcy, and the supplemental benefit programs provide greater protection for your employees' personal financial well-being than dental or vision insurance. And in today's economy of rising rates, cost of living, and inflation, an employer that's attuned to helping their employees manage their personal financial well-being, they're more likely to attract and retain employees in a productive role at work. This graph helps display that increasing role of supplemental benefits over the last 30 years. They're becoming increasingly important in the total comp strategy as the cost of care rises and is transferred to employees. So here, the dark blue, that represents the employer's cost of healthcare, while the light blue, that's representing the employee's cost of healthcare over the last 30 years. What's important to note here is that the growth of healthcare is really driven by the trend and cost of care inflation that has happened over the time, as well as the increased transfer of responsibility to the employees with higher deductibles and higher out-of-pocket expenses. So employees today have more financial exposure than they've ever had before. The orange line, which represents the growth in voluntary and supplemental benefits, that's really purely driven by increased participation, because for the most part, the pricing of these products has essentially stayed flat over that course of time. So the increase is really just a reflection of employee demand. And that demand is driven by average deductibles today being well over $1,200, which doesn't even include out-of-pocket maximums. But while two out of every three Americans don't even have $1,000 in savings. So there's an inequity there. And it's the supplemental benefits have become a strategic part in that total comp strategy. It's become the employee safety net. Now, despite that participation growth in these programs, they are inefficient for employees. They have very low claims ratios, which leads to a tremendous lack of transparency from the carriers. Traditional carriers don't want you to see claims ratios or loss ratios of 25%, 17%, or even 12%. And think about that. That's only 12 cents goes back to your employees for every dollar that is sent to the carrier. While claims is really hard to obtain, that claims information is hard to obtain, it's not impossible. So here's just an example of one of our clients that was able to get their data from their in-force carrier. That client was spending a premium of $2 million, and that was over the course of 4 years. Over that time, the carrier received $4 million in underwriting profit. The broker, who wasn't doing anything more than just putting this onto an enrollment platform, they also received $2 million, while the employees, who were the ones that were paying for the coverage, only received $2 million of their $8 million paid. That's a 3-to-1 ratio in favor of the industry. It's no wonder that employers don't see these as having a high value. They're a low value program. So what BeneRe is doing is we're flipping that pyramid upside down. So to summarize the answer of our first question, what was the problem we're addressing? Well, these programs are in demand. They play a strategic role in the total comp strategy for employers, but the two main problems with traditional carriers are there's a low claims payment, which leads to little value for employees, and there's a lack of transparency. Where are your employees' wages going? It's typically not going to pay claims. So we're going to address the second question here. How does BeneRe uniquely solve this problem? Well, first, we actually take the good parts of the traditional programs. It's not completely broken. Some of it's working efficiently, like the enrollment process. Employees go on, they enroll via BenAdmin system, which is easy and fast. And secondly, these programs are fully insured by an A-rated insurance company. Employees have the full faith and credit of Voya as the insurance carrier. And from employer and an employee perspective, nothing is different during the plan year. Then what we do is we add a unique financing mechanism that provides the greatest value to the employer and the employee by using a group captive model. The captive then reinsures 100% of this fully insured program, which allows all of the participating employers to benefit from the upside by way of an annual dividend that then gets reinvested back into employee programs. BeneRe actually takes 100% of the downside risk. So as one of our CHRO clients explained it to them, in their mind, they see this as heads they win, tails they tie. Here's a visual of how the mechanism works or the mechanics work. It may look a little complex, but actually in reality, it's elegant in its simplicity. So here, everything in the blue on the left side of center operates exactly as a traditional program would during the plan year. And if you're a regular client with Voya. Broker, they're going to support the enrollment process. The premiums, those are payroll deducted from the employees. And then Voya does all of the administration from the policies, billing, and claims. And in fact, from the claims and billing departments at Voya, they don't even know who's a captive participant and who's not a captive participant. But then at the end of the year, end of the plan year, what Voya does is they seed their surplus premium. So those dollars not used to actually pay claims, they seed that premium to the captive, which we then distribute pro rata to each of the participating employers, which then they can reinvest into employee programs. So here's how it actually works in real life. Here's that same client we talked about a minute ago. The premium or the employer was sending $2 million of their employees' wages to the carrier. Again, the blue represents the same, the traditional model. Of the $2 million of employee wages, $1 million of that stayed with the carrier. 500,000 of it went to the broker, and only 500,000 went back to the employees that were funding the premiums. So when BeneRe took over the program, the premiums immediately dropped by 10%. Operating costs and broker commissions were also lowered. And now $1 million, over $1 million, which is more than double the previous amount, is reserved to pay employee claims. Any portion of that amount that's not used to pay claims is then returned to the employer as an asset of the welfare plan and then are reinvested into employee programs. In every case, employees receive a better benefit at a lower premium on the front end. And then on the back end, the employer is going to receive total transparency and then a dividend, which they reinvest into their employees. So how does money get reinvested? Well, because these are employee dollars, there are restrictions and how they can be spent based off the Department of Labor regulations. So the dividend is distributed as an asset of the welfare plan, therefore have to be reinvested into programs like Ben admin systems, contribution strategies, or a point of service solution like a health or financial wellness program. So anything, really anything that can be used to attract, engage, and retain your talent. So HR has control over that budget. It doesn't sit with a broker or any sort of expense issue. It goes back to HR's department. So give a little history. We started back in 2019 with a proof of concept. We had 35,000 covered employees and paid a dividend that year of 20%. In 2020, we grew to 110,000 employees. Then COVID hit. We thought we were dead in the water. Claims slowed. We paid a 25% dividend, and that's because of the claims slowing down. But we weathered the storm, and in 2021, we actually almost doubled in size to 210,000 covered employees. And that year, we paid a 22.5% dividend. And then this year, we are on track to reach 315,000 covered lives and expected to be about 500,000 by 2024. So, moral of the story, employers will gain total transparency in their supplemental or voluntary program while providing their employees better coverage, lower premiums to enhance the overall benefit package. On the back end, the employer is going to receive that dividend, which then can be reinvested to attract, retain, and engage talent. So we're revolutionizing and disrupting the supplemental market space with transparent options that employers haven't seen before, giving your employees greater coverage, no risk to you, no extra cost to the employers, but that year-end dividend is what you can use to reinvest in your people moving forward. So this is just an example of some of our participating employers today. Art mentioned we've gained a few more logos, but surely you can associate with somebody on this list. So with that, Art, I'm going to open it up to questions.
Well, thank you, Kyle. Would you stop your screen share so we can see all the attendees as they ask questions?
Absolutely, if I can find the right. Stop share.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we just want to move on to the Q&A portion of the presentation. Thank you. As a reminder to everybody in the webinar, please click on the raised hand feature, or you can just type your question in the chat function and we'll ask the questions for you, or at least as many as we can. And Kyle, I've got a question for you just to kick things off. This just sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? So,
what's the catch? There is no catch. This is it's a better mousetrap. It's more efficient. The challenge, the headwind we see in the marketplace is the traditional carriers and the brokers don't like talking about it because there's less money in it for them, candidly. That's why it's, that is where one of our challenges to scale right now is the distribution model with traditional insurance brokers.
So I think to build on that, obviously, if I've got Allstate in my employees today, and I'd have to change them out, right? I'm guessing to Voya, correct? That'd be the one thing I need to do.
Yes, changing a carrier is one thing, but in the traditional world, in the way that the commission structure works for voluntary programs, clients and employers are typically used to changing them every 3 years or so. One of the advantages is we have yet to lose the client. We've had 100% retention because once the HR department and their employer groups realize that they're creating cash flow into their departments by way of the dividend, that's going to be very hard for them to give up. And since no one else is really replicating this model right now, they stay with us rather than move to another provider.
Great. How about qualifications around there's certain group sizes you're targeting, for example?
Yep. So today we are looking at groups of 1,000 employees or more when it is 100% employee paid. But we are working with other clients that are getting into the contribution of these programs. They see the value of all of the employees having this coverage to help fit that gap of a high deductible plan. And so when the employer is funding the program, we can move down to about 250 employee lives.
Well, great. I think that was maybe one of the questions being alluded to about bundling this on an employer-funded basis with a high deductible plan to take away the sting of the fear of the high deductible itself. So one of the questions we got, it was about how are you, can you go back and kind of recover, how are you actually wringing out the cost reductions that you've described?
I don't know if I fully understand that question.
So the savings come from a combination of tactics. So.
Okay. Yep. So savings is coming from a couple of areas. One is the broker commission. Traditionally these programs are paying, anywhere from 70% to 25% commission. So we're going with a flat 10% commission basis. The other part is the underwriting profit that is typically retained. So that 70% commission, by the way, is on a first year or a heaped basis. And so let's just use the example I had in this case of 25% broker commission. So you go from 25% to a 10%. And then you also have the broker or the carrier is retaining 50% underwriting profit. Our model, it's somewhere closer to 25 to 30% retention of that underwriting profit. So then what we'll do is we'll cede that difference or that delta back to the employer.
I got it. So you're essentially reducing the insurer's profits, and Voya has agreed to this in exchange for no doubt volume and also then
Client
also
retention.
And client retention, right? Long-term relationships. And also, I think you said that you're right sizing the broker compensation is more appropriate for the level of effort.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
And then, but whatever money is left over still becomes back to the employer as a dividend, and they can spend that on however they choose, right? They could pay it for broker services or any other thing, but they would be in control of the dollars. I think that's what you were.
Yeah, there is some restrictions on how that dollars can be spent. So specific consulting projects related to HR services, like a wellness evaluation or something like that can be used for it. But direct broker compensation that falls outside that definition that they can be used for.
Are there any qualifying risk categories to get into the pool, this group captive pool? Any industry?
Essentially any industry. There are a few, staffing companies or PEOs right now are not with our current fronting company. Part of our growth right now, candidly, is we're actually fielding inbound calls from carriers asking us to become their captive manager. So that could add to our scope of products, as well as working with a number of other carriers. And when we add another fronting company, so to define that, Voya is our fronting company today. We're using their paper to write the coverage. When we add another fronting company, we're hoping to bring this solution down market to 100 employees plus. And we're looking to add some additional products, and that'll also add into areas of markets that we're not quite servicing, like a PEO or a staffing company.
The question hasn't been asked, and I'll just sort of be a fly on the wall here about why has it taken so long for this to come to market? Why hasn't this been done earlier?
I don't know the answer to that question, Art. I mean, these products been around for 30, 40 years. The enrollment model that it was born from was a very manual process. It was somebody going to the break room, bringing donuts, sitting down with an employee one at a time and walking them through and selling this. With the advent of technology, many of the other products in the voluntary space, the employee benefit space, has adapted to technology. Because the margins are so great on these products traditionally, I think it has been overlooked at a way to create some efficiencies. The carriers have been taking advantage of these larger margins. The brokers have been taking advantage of the higher commissions. And full transparency, I was a broker 90 days ago. Before I came here, I was working with one of the large broker houses. So I was in that seat. I learned about this. I sold this product and really, got on board with how it can change the industry. So that's why I left that side. But yes, there's the economics didn't make sense for this industry to shift. We are shedding light on that and disrupting the current model.
Yeah, the golden goose, no one wanted to kill it, I think, because the profits are so high for carriers in this space. I've noticed that there's been like a tripling of the number of insurers that have been flocking to this space because the money is so great. But the only way they can get more volume is to pay higher and higher commissions, which is really a travesty, since a lot of the people that enroll in these plans are the lowest paid hourly non-exempt workers who really need better benefits to fill these huge gaps on the healthcare side and provide supplemental income when they get sick. So it's a great revelation, great thing that you're doing there, Kyle. I mean, I think it's long overdue, but we understand the industry doesn't want to reform itself when people are making a lot of money.
Yeah.
You said so there's several carriers you said are actually calling in saying, can they be a fronting carrier for BeneRe?
Yes.
That's great. Are there any customer satisfaction metrics for BeneRe?
100% retention. I mean, that's our metric right now. We haven't lost anyone yet. And a dividend of 22% going back and reinvested in their employees. So as of today, those are our metrics. We don't have any NP score or net promoter scores or anything like that, but yes.
Yeah, to me, I think what you've just presented here, this is the best thing the industry could ever have, the closest thing, I should say, to self-funding that is legally possible for this industry, because it can't be self-insured by law. They must be insurance policies. And when I'm thinking about this, my healthcare strategy background, the average employer today has about 5% of their expenses or less are really administration fees. Healthcare fully insured policies can't exceed 15%, but you just showed us on these policies it's 75%. That kind of puts it, when I think about it in that context, it's like, wow, this is such a long overdue disruption to the industry. And based on what you told me, I can't imagine why the industry this won't be the entire industry in the next 5 years or 10 years, that everybody will be able to purchase these on this basis. So thank you for the innovation.
We're hoping the industry does, and we're hoping we're their captive manager.
Excellent. That's excellent. Well, I have opened the floor for any more questions that might be out there about this at all. And that's okay if they're not. So going once, going twice. So thank you, Kyle. Stephen, you're up next.
Thank you, everyone.
And, just a reminder to everyone to let our presenters know, or us at ESA, that you're interested in engaging with either Kyle or Stephen for further conversation. So Stephen, you want to go ahead and share your screen? You've got 15 minutes as well, and thereafter you have the 10 minutes for Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you, Art. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. We're good.
Wonderful. All right. Well, it's good to be with everybody today. I appreciate the invitation to spend some time with you. Today, I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle on this concept of well-being and engagement, and talk about how advanced analytics are actually helping drive engagement. And this is really a space that we are in as a company at Benefit Science. So we're a data science company. We believe in innovation. We work very, very hard to make sure that we're at the cutting edge of technology. One of my partners and co-founders, Dimitris Bertsimas, who has been teaching analytics and data science at MIT for over 30 years, has published over 200 papers, 5 textbooks. And so in this area of data mining, machine learning, AI, these are areas of core competence for us. And you'll see that in some of the solutions that we're actually going to talk about today. Yeah, there's a race that's taking place. I think everybody feels that today, the technology race. It's how do we deploy data to transform the decisions that we're making and inform the decisions that we're making. And that's taking place throughout every industry in the world. Healthcare and benefits specifically has been, I would say, a little bit slower to adopt the technology that is driving better decisions, but it's certainly there. We are helping lead that rallying cry that data should be informing almost all decisions. You know, it's one thing to have a high-end broker or consultant that is using their lifetime of experience to inform changes that they might be recommending. But quite frankly, if I put 10 consultants in a room from the same organization, gave them data on the same employer, you might find that there's 8 or 9 different recommendations given in terms of what to do next to control costs. And that's really, challenging, right? Because you may have one of the best ones, or you may have one that isn't one of the best. So we talk about using data, using sophisticated algorithms and software to help inform these decisions. And so today we're going to discuss how we use analytics to drive better engagement in a number of areas. High level, I just want to set the stage. I'm going to actually go into a brief demo to show an example of one of our use cases that we're going to be talking about today. But just to set the stage for what we do as an organization, there are many different aspects of what we do, but one of the core things we do is we take in data from the health care, for the third-party administrators or the insurance companies that have all the claims data. So you might be a self-insured employer with 2,000 employees, you're generating claims every single month. Those claims files are sent to us through established pipes that we have with over 170 different origination points, all the major insurance carriers, the pharmacy managers, all the major TPAs. We have all that connectivity already built. So either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, we're receiving data such as medical claims, RX claims files, HRA data, stop loss information, all that's coming in. We normalize that and we manage a data warehouse that enables us then to deploy analytics. And we're going to talk about that in 3 steps today: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive, largely focused around predictive and prescriptive analytics and how we're solving problems in the industry. So with that being said, I've really got 3 use cases I'd like to share with you today in terms of examples of how this is being done, how innovation is being done to help engagement with plan members. And the first one we're going to look at is an example from our prescriptive analytics category. And this is around how we match solutions that are available. I think everybody on this call has probably heard that there are well over 500 different cost containment solutions available in the marketplace. And that's just what I would call the mainstream solutions. There's well over 1,000 when you get into some of the more targeted or less well-known. How do I make sure that as an employer, I'm matching the right solution that I need to my risk? And I'm not just sort of being sold a program that is driving the highest commissions to my broker, or is sort of the hot topic of the day, has no relevance to my risk or my population, but that's what my broker is bringing to me. We're going to talk about how we use analytics and to drive the matching of those solutions to the right population. And then we're going to talk second how we use predictive models to target the intervention. So how do I make sure that I'm talking to the right individuals who need the solution and not just talking to everybody in the population, 85% of which may not have any need for what we're talking about at all. And then the third thing we're going to go into is intelligent policies, how we're using artificial intelligence to inform when to file a claim. And coincidentally, the example I'm going to use is in the supplemental benefits industry, which Kyle just went through in great detail a little bit about, and we'll show how we're using how we've developed a solution that can actually help determine who should be filing a claim and when. So our first use case is prescriptive analytics. We have built software that takes in claims data from an employer and identifies what is the leading risk and what solutions could be deployed against that risk. And I'm just going to switch over here quickly and show you in our actual software how that plays out today in the real world. So this is a demo site, but this is a site that one of our 1,200 clients would have access to, where they can go in at any point in time and see how their plan is performing, pull down a number of different reports, even create their own reports. But the interesting component here is what needs your attention. These are areas that we have algorithmically determined are not performing well on your plan. So this doesn't take a consultant, hopefully you've got a good one, to identify these things. This is happening through algorithms. And then beyond just identifying we've got an issue, we're actually identifying what to do about it. So in this case, this is a particular identification that there's a very large potential savings opportunity due to some inefficient ways that end-stage renal is playing out on the employer's plan. And so we've identified there's $1.7 million of potential savings. We allow the employer to go in and drill into their data, sort of see where these costs are playing out. You can start at a very high level and see the totals, or you can drill all the way down to an individual level and see where those dollars are being spent. But the real core component here that we're going to look at is these prescriptive actions. What should I do about this problem? I've told you there's a problem. Now I'll give you some ideas around how to solve this problem. And you can click through these and see more details if you want to learn more about how to solve some of these issues. So we're identifying a concern, giving you a chance to see in the details where these costs are elevated, and then we're going to give you options for how to solve these problems. And this is all happening in a fully automated way. So that's one example of prescriptive analytics and how this is helping engagement, because we're actually putting in place programs that matter to the population. Second use case is more of our predictive models, but it ties really well into the first use case. Now that I've got a solution, and the example I'm going to give you here is a musculoskeletal or MSK cost containment solution. So let's say an employer has hired a company who can offer carve out, low cost, narrow network surgical knee, hip, back repair, mostly MSK activity. One strategy is HR might simply message to the entire company, hey, don't forget, if you have an issue with a knee, back, or hip next year, call or log into this program that we've engaged with. You can reduce your out-of-pocket cost to zero. Well, most members forget they even heard that message, and then when they actually have a problem, they don't remember they have the service and they don't use it. The engagement on most of these point solutions are typically in the 10% or below range. So we have a predictive model specifically for MSK and other conditions like pregnancy and others, where we are identifying who are the highest risk members. So we know at any given point in time, 90% of the population is not going to have an MSK event next year. Who are the ones that are going to have an event? We have a predictive model, not looking backwards, but looking forward over the next 12 months. And we score every individual the likelihood that they are going to have surgery. And just to expand on that, so these are individual people. They're de-identified, of course, but we have scored their risk that they are likely to have a surgical event. So now, when we feed this information back to the cost containment solution that the employer has hired, they're targeting the exact people who need the service and not just trying to talk to everybody, 90% of which don't need the service. So by targeting specific people that actually have the risk to whatever program you're offering, the engagement levels go through the roof. And this is an area that traditionally was not available because these predictive models did not exist to be able to target people with specific conditions, but we can do that now at scale. The other way that we can message people is not just feeding this information to a point solution, but we have an initiative right now with one of the largest companies in the country that produces the EOBs for insurance carriers. For over 90 major insurance carriers, they produce the explanation of benefits. Our project, our joint project together, is to deliver the messaging that's relevant to the individual on their explanation of benefits. So this is specifically tailoring a campaign to register for the carrier's website. We are able in the back end to process who needs this message. Not everybody gets this message on their EOB, just the individuals that we're targeting. Or if it's a message around their MSK program, it's just the individuals that we've identified as likely to need a surgery. If this is the messaging around notifying them about Livongo or some of their diabetes program, this is specifically going to show up for those members who had that condition. So we're in the background processing with our predictive models who needs to hear this message, and then we're delivering that message either back to the point solution or through our partner that produces these EOBs, and that messaging is getting sent to the individual, again, with the goal of improving engagement. And then the final use case ties back to what Kyle was talking about earlier. Now that we've got these great policies, what happens, and the reason why when he showed sometimes the loss ratios are 50% or even lower, in some cases they can be 30% or even lower. The reason why that is most members forget they bought these policies, or they have a claim and they don't realize that that claim is eligible for payment against this policy. So we have been developing algorithms where we will code up the policies in many different carriers' policies. So we know that a certain CPT code triggers a payout from their benefit plan, from their supplemental benefit plan. And we've now got this in place with 4 carriers. We should have 8 of the top 10 by the end of this year, where we have fully coded. And what we're able to do is to score every single medical claim as a probability that it's eligible for reimbursement under the supplemental policy. So what this is doing now is we have been engaged with, as I said, 4 of the major supplemental carriers and soon to be 8, where we are now messaging the member to let them know, hey, we have noticed that you had a medical event that we believe is eligible for reimbursement under your supplemental policy, your critical illness policy, or your accident policy. Click here to file your claim. In some cases, what the carriers are doing, if the probability of success is high enough, they'll just auto pay the claim without the member having to even file it. So this is, again, how we're using analytics to drive engagement, because these policies are much more effective if we get claims paid to the members, right? They typically will stop paying the premium every month if they have these policies for year after year after year and never get a claim. So the carriers, in a lot of ways, want more claims to be paid because they want to bring more value to their plan members, but there hasn't been a very good way to do that. We step into the picture. We have all the claims data from the medical carriers. And now that the supplemental carrier tells us who has enrolled in their policies, we can connect those dots and inform the member when there is a claim to be paid and make it easy for them to file their claims. This, of course, is an opt-in service. The member who buys a supplemental policy is given that choice when they enroll in the policy. And once they opt in, then our service starts immediately. So I know that was a lot to take in a very short time period, but my 15 minutes is up, and I hope I can answer any questions that you might have. And grateful again for the chance to give you a glimpse as to how we're deploying analytics to improve engagement and well-being.
Well, great, right on time, Stephen. If you don't mind, stop your screen share so we can see our attendees as they ask questions. Sorry to cut you off, but we're going to move into the Q&A portion now. Just one more reminder to those in the webinar, please click on the raise hand feature, or you can type your questions into the chat function, which most of you typically do, and we'll ask them for you, at least as many as we can. So let's get started here. One of the questions that was posed was, are you only using the data to address point of service, or can you drill down to health risk in a population of employees, such as wellness interventions?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the reporting, as I switched screens and showed you a glimpse of our application that employers or consultants will utilize, there are over 200 standard reports that dive into things like chronic conditions, how utilization around wellness visits. We produce risk scores that take into account the likelihood that an individual member is going to cost more than, we categorize that more than 5,000, 15,000, more than 100,000 in the next 12 months. So we are able to drive down to risk, health risks, and then that information is used to inform recommendations we give the employer on how to change their plan design at the new cycle for their open enrollment period. So all this ties together. Health risks are a core component of the underlying way that we leverage the data to provide actionable analytics.
I was particularly intrigued with your reference to next best actions, and I like to think of that as next best choices, that there's a real gap in the healthcare system today. I had a torn meniscus seriously, and thanks to my own healthcare consulting background, was having a dialogue with the orthopedic about what my next best choices were that spanned from do nothing, get PT, get Synvest injections, to get arthroscopic surgery, to get stem cell injections, et cetera. And, I had to dig that out myself. There was nothing helping me think through what really was best for me of a range of treatment outcomes. So can you elaborate a little bit about that in terms of when you're talking about next best actions, if you don't mind, Stephen?
Sure. Yeah, because we have so much data in our data warehouse, what we're able to do and with our competence around machine learning models and building predictive models is we can see every individual who has had a particular condition. If we look at heart attacks, we might have 50,000 individuals who have had heart attacks in our data warehouse. And so as we're able to look back in their claims, we see what steps individuals took that led to more positive outcomes. We see the steps that might have been taken or missed from individuals who where we led to poorer outcomes or ongoing high cost servicing with their condition. And so we, as part of what we're doing beyond some of the examples I showed today, is we are building technology today that is helping individuals make better choices. We had a project that we jointly developed with a healthcare system in Western Michigan called Spectrum Health, where we studied specifically how patients with diabetes, what actions were most relevant. And this is personalized, right? What actions I take based on my comorbidities are different than the ones that you might be recommended to take. And we can see a lot of this in the data. Now, we're not supplanting the professional, the physician, but we are able to identify in the data where good choices are being made or poor choices, or at the very least, give a reminder to an individual that they haven't had their A1C test this year, or they haven't had their nutrition counseling tests with their endocrinologist. So there are, with the data at the finite level, we're able to review it. There is incredible amounts of information being generated, that some of which we turn into messaging, and all of it is helpful for us to understand the expected future risk of an individual. And we're at the very earliest stages. I think you're seeing it in all walks of life with Apple, Google, Amazon is into the healthcare space. Everybody wants to control the messaging of what doctor you're going to, what actions you're taking. Did you remember to take your medication or not? We're at the very earliest stages of this. I think we're going to kind of see this continue to evolve, where analytics and data is really informing at an individual level how I can manage my healthcare in a more effective way than traditionally, as you said, Art, just being left to sort of do it on my own with very little insight.
Yeah, just speaking for the HR function, how many times in the past 10, 20 years have employers been asked to sit for hours going through reports while the carrier, insurer, whoever was looking at what happened last year without really any real-time, insights on that are informed from the data to information, to insights, to action, to say, here's what we can do right now to a problem emerging in location X with provider Y. And you sort of quickly glossed over that because we have limited time, but you've baked in very specific strategic actions that are driven from the underlying data. And that's a great new capabilities that employers definitely need.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's if you're looking at a high claimant report and you're looking at what's already happened and you project that to next year, 25% of what's on there is going to carry over to next year. The other 75% is going to be new activity. And so the ability to look forward with a predictive model and to see what's coming, not just what's happened, can dramatically improve how you prepare for with the risk that's on your books and your expenses going forward.
Great. Well, I had a question here about how do you getting the employee claim data itself, or is it just the current policy period, or are you able to get past data from previous insurance providers?
Yeah, great question. So when we engage with an employer, generally we're able to capture 3 years of historical data, and then the carrier will send us an updated file every 30 days. So we're always capturing the new activity that's occurred within the past month. When we work with carriers, it could be as many as 5+ years, but in most cases, we're starting out with at least 3 years of history.
Great, great. And things change so rapidly, you know, much history beyond that is probably not as helpful to inform unless you're doing what population health, longitudinal work. But I wanted to ask a question. Everybody in today's world is time starved. I mean, with benefit science technology, can I kind of set up parameters in your system and then it just tells me, it sends me a note about I need to look and what to do? Have you gotten to that point where it's kind of like, you know, Amazon recommendations? It makes my job easier for being a strategist by telling me what and when I need to take action on.
Yeah, so interestingly to that point, Art, 60% of the clicks in our system, our software, are from consultants and brokers. So the employers are still heavily reliant on their consultants to tell them what to do. And so we're sort of consulting to the consultants, because they're generally having to dig through a lot of data. So our system is able to tell them, here's what's working well, here's what's not working well, here are the things to talk to your clients about. What we're not doing is sort of this real-time sending an alert that, hey, you've got a new problem that's just emerged. Like that's something that will come in the future. But right now we get data on an every 30-day basis from the carriers. So it's not happening on a real-time basis. In most cases, sometimes it is daily from TPAs, but in the majority of cases, it's every 30 days. So I think as time goes on, we will get to a point where we're doing more real-time notification and triggering. But today, it's happening where we're dramatically reducing the amount of time an HR benefits manager or a broker needs to spend digging into the data to figure out what's wrong, because we're already identifying those items for them, and then even then prescribing what to talk about, what services to deploy that can offset the risk in the population.
Now, you provide this solution to just insured plans or self-insured plans, or both?
Both. So we have about 1,200 self-insured plans that we process data on each month, and about 16,000 fully insured plans. So we can process it on all sizes. Smallest groups we process it on is probably 30 employees, and our largest single employer has 350,000 employees, 650,000 plan members.
So a question was posed, and I had almost laughed out loud when I saw it, but if you have 10 consultants look at your data, are we going to get 8 different answers? And I think that's really 10 different answers, I think.
Yeah, because they're humans, they're still going to have their own opinions, but we will have a point of view on this is the solution to recommend to solve this problem. So how they then convey it to their clients is out of our control, but it's a good point. And that's part of the reason why we need to embrace, and not that human intervention goes away, but we definitely need to supplement it with data analytics and advanced modeling, because these are adding a perspective that traditionally is not there just from the human side alone.
Well, thank you, Stephen. I mean, obviously, one of the reasons why we're having this series is there, as of CB Insights' latest findings, there are 11,400 digital health solutions trying to make its way to the marketplace right now. So it's a blizzard, and helping companies figure out where to point their energies, and like you just talked about with, prescriptive and predictive insights is the way to go. So that just about wraps it up for today, everybody. We hope you benefited today by learning something new. That's one of our objectives here, is to help you learn and grow in your knowledge about well-being, particularly those things that impact engagement and retention from the result of improved well-being. So healthcare continues to be complex. It's hard to navigate. Health literacy is low, which is why we've got these two companies, great companies today, talking to you. Just to recap, BeneRe solution improves employee well-being by doing three things. It lowers the cost to employees. It dramatically increases the benefits and provides a 20 to 25% dividend back to the employer. And Benefit Science's prescriptive analytics solution does many things, like predictive and prescriptive analytics to drive well-being, has next best action and choices to improve outcomes, and creates a whole new line of sight of insights on what's going on and how to react to it in real time. We're going to send a link out to all of you to the ESA's YouTube channel with all these presentations. Reminder, please reach out to the presenters directly. We'll have their contact information in their presentation so you can learn more. Back to you and Anna and John.
Good deal. Thank you so much, Stephen and Kyle, as well as our MC Art for all of the insights today. We really appreciate it. So on behalf of Cindy and John and I, thank you so much. As everybody has mentioned, John and Art have mentioned, we're going to do this every other week. So on the 10th of August, we will have Included Health and Simply Pay. So dial in for that one and then watch for the rest of the invitations, because they're every other week. And one other announcement I want to make is that on the 16th of August, all of you might have gotten an invitation to this already. Please sign up for it. But we are going to do kind of a one-on-one on the metaverse. And we are bringing in two founders of two different metaverses. And not only are they going to chat a little bit about what that means, but how it's going to affect companies in the future, because companies are kind of jumping in and taking advantage of it. So anyway, thank you to everyone. We really appreciate it. And we will get the recording out to all of you later today. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.